is this just fantasy, or are we talking Fritz Lieber and his creations Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser? So it was inevitable because I'm eventually and probably very soon going to talk about some comic adaptations of some of these stories. But I had to talk about Fritz Lieber and Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. These are fantasy staple characters from the last century, from the earliest stories at the very start of fantasy as a genre, going forward into the final volume coming out in the late 80s. This is like a set of characters that are very inspirational and influential on a lot of fantasy writers and even non-fantasy writers. Formative on the creation of D&D, on just so many other fantasy mainstays and franchises. Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser are just, they're everywhere. Their influence is everywhere, at least. And Fritz Lieber is the cause of it. He's a writer who, he kind of sort of followed after Robert E. Howard and started telling his own kind of sword and sorcery tales. Although I feel like he definitely had the notion of it being swords against sorcery. And I don't know, I just find that really exciting and really interesting fantasy-wise. We're not going to talk too much about the stories inside. We're just going to talk about the covers this time around because, this is about fantasy art after all. And this also gives me a chance to do some comparison, but more importantly, to talk about the amazing artist behind most of these covers, who is J. Catherine Jones. She was an incredible artist who did so many different book cover designs. She also did some comics and movie posters, or at least one movie poster in particular that is very important to me. She was a painter that Frank Frazetta, who was a contemporary of hers, called the greatest living painter. That's what he said about her. So I want to talk about, just the quality of these covers. The versions I have are not the original versions of these covers, of course. These are a later package design, and I will be putting up like the full image of these covers because they're kind of shrunken down on these. But I just wanted to go over and talk about book cover design because it's something that I said we would do, and I figure why not start with the amazing J. Catherine Jones. So let's start with the first one, Swords and Deviltry. So right away, I want to just talk about the amazing atmosphere that J. Catherine Jones has in her paintings. And just how evocative this image is when it comes to the idea behind it. We have this cloaked figure with a sword against a being that appears to be only partially corporeal, if corporeal at all. And it just seems like it's rife with danger and with mystery, with magic, and this could be, it's called Swords and Deviltry, so this is representing honestly both of those things. And the story that it's illustrating is also a really great one. So this is the first volume, and it covers two, I guess you could call them prequel stories that set up the backstory of each of our main characters. Fafhrd, who's kind of this barbarian type character, and the Grey Mouser, who's kind of like a rogue. Both very interesting stories. And then the most important story in here is Ilmet and Lankmar, which is the first story of them meeting. And it's also a very just on its own influential story. And we'll be talking about that very soon, thanks to an amazing comic adaptation of that story. I want to take this opportunity to also do a little bit of a comparison here. So here we have, at least a version of the Jeffrey Catherine Jones design of the cover, or at least the painting related to the cover. And then here we have a more modern book design. Now, I don't want to be mean. In fact, I set up that I wasn't going to be mean on this channel, but I'm clearly going to be drawn to one of these things over the other. This is incredibly generic. It says nothing about what's inside. I have no idea what this snake coiled around a sword is, but I'm guessing it's just, like, I don't know. It makes me think of clip art, like fantasy clip art. There's no need to call out the name of this designer because, again, I don't want to be mean, but it's just, it leaves a lot to be desired, and it represents my problem with the state of book jacket design. I actually have a friend who their work has been on the many book jackets and is actually really lovely, really beautiful, and just reminds me of how lovely a book jacket and how important a book jacket design is. Also, I don't understand the branding of Lankmar because, I mean, that is, I guess, the world they inhabit, and that's what ties it together, but I don't know. I feel like that's just an odd way to try to market the series. But in any case, you know where my preference is. So here's the second book, which we have, and it is Swords Against Death. And we just have another lovely atmospheric painting by Catherine Jones of this sea god, as you could call it, this Neptune, Poseidon-esque character threatening this ship. And I just love the contrast of the blue and the gold, or this, and the rendering of the ship is, well, at once rough and textured, but also I get a clear sense of the actual attention to detail when it comes to, like, how a ship from a particular era was built. And again, I feel like Catherine Jones really demonstrates the importance of atmosphere and kind of a haziness, a mystery to fantasy art. And I just think that this art, this design really draws me in. Here we have Swords in the Mist, which is the third book. And already we have another great dramatic image by Catherine Jones. We even get a signature right here on at least this edition of it. And here it says J. Jones. And that's her original, or the name she originally worked under was Jeffrey Jones. But then later she transitioned and became Catherine Jones, or J. Catherine Jones, or sometimes, and very often, if you want to look up her work, it is Jeffrey Catherine Jones is how it's put out there. And I highly encourage you to look up her work because she is just such an inspiring talent. Just this amazing figure work, this atmospheric and mysterious castle in the back, a highly prominent sword here. It's an image full of drama and it's exciting. It's maybe tragic. It evokes so many different feelings and ideas that it just makes me want to pick it up and read it. So not only great book cover design that inspires you to want to read it, but just a gorgeous image. It's of this warrior here. Here we have Swords Against Wizardry with another Catherine Jones image here of a wizard. Love the little designs here on the robe, love this lush, hair here of the wizard. This, sphere, this bird. Like, I don't know. I think it's the perfect notes of mystery, but also like specificity. Like it's so evocative of what you expect to see in fantasy, and yet it's more specific, but then it's still hazy and mysterious, and it's inviting you to add something of your own, something of yourself, into the image. And I think, again, that's the power of of giving the reader or the viewer enough detail to orient themselves, but not so much that you're just telling them everything. Gorgeous. Here we have book 5, The Swords of Lankhmar, and you're never gonna hear me complain about just a big sea monster, with a person writing it, no less. Just like, again, like I love seeing her brushwork. Her brushwork is something to envy and something to emulate and something to inspire. I love it. I love dwelling on it and pouring over it, just getting at that texture, because it's that texture that to me activates my brain, activates my creativity, by basking in her creativity. Love just the articulation of these scales, and just the dressing of this figure. And again, it's loaded with such like mystery, and yet like it's also depicting an exciting scene, and it just makes me want to pick it up. Just another gorgeous work. So here we have something a little different. So this is a cover done by Michael Whalen, who is another artist that I'll definitely be talking about in the future, and is just another very creative, very inspiring fantasy painter and illustrator, who's done the cover of many books, who's just lent themselves to so many different things in the realm of fantasy and science fiction. But I'm excited to talk more about Michael Whalen. But here we have, which is unlike the previous, which is a more clear illustration of our titular characters of Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, and this is where we get just a better view, at least in this particular video, of who these books are about. So we have Fafhrd, he's this, again, like large barbarian, with red hair and a big sword, and here we have the Grey Mouser, who's again like more of a rogue character, who's full of cleverness and is a little bit connected to some darkness, but it's just a great visual contrast in these two characters that are friends and go on adventures together. And I think that's really the strength of it, is that it's these two very different types of people, very different types of characters, and that contrast just makes for interesting reading, and it's exciting, and it also makes you want to go on an adventure with your friends. Just a great illustration here, of the titular characters, and I think it's a great choice, because it's like, oh, okay, here's who's on the adventure, and it's just a great rendering of both of them. Like, great costuming. Love the red in here, and the pairing of that with the title, or the author name, actually. And yeah, just a great amount of detail in their clothing, but also, again, still a little hazy, still a little mystery, like, where they are, what they're doing is meant to be left for you to discover when you pick up the book. And here we have the final version that I own, at least, of the final book in the series. And just to point out, and something I haven't said really, is that these books, it's not just one story in them. Each are a collection of a couple of short stories related to the characters. And so there's more than just, 7 stories about them. It's many more than that. But like each book is a collection of several short stories, because that's what Fritz Lieber wrote, and that's, I think, a really cool format. This is by, was it Tom Canty? So this book cover and designed by Tom Canty. I really love it. It's really nice. It's kind of Art Nouveau, at least in the kind of design elements. The figure work is interesting, and I think it's interesting how, in comparison to this one, the rendering of the characters. So, but I can still tell who's who, because Grey Mouser is shorter than Fafhrd. Fafhrd's looking a little more elegant, a little less barbaric here. But yeah, just really interesting details on all of them. And it's I think a pretty nice book design. And just has me intrigued. And again, it's pointing out what's important. What should draw you to this book is the characters. And if you're familiar with the characters, it's like, oh yeah, I want to read more about them, the cool adventures they go on. So there you have the complete set of Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser stories and their covers. Also, just always a great excuse to talk about J. Catherine Jones and her work, and to share it with other people. And I encourage you to look into it. I also encourage you to look into reading some Fritz Lieber and Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser if you haven't and you're a fantasy fan. Real fun stories, interesting characters. There's some darkness to it. There's some great comedy and levity. Really good dialogue, good character dynamics, and just an interesting, mysterious world. And I think beautifully illustrated here by Jeffrey Catherine Jones, Michael Whalen, Tom Canty, and of course many others that we will soon see. And if you're into stories about kind of odd couple pairings going on adventures, then I gave you Side Questers, which is my book. Definitely inspired by Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser and comic adaptations of it. And it's about these two, which is a noble warrior and a big spooky looking lizard man. And this is just the collection of the first 8 issues, which is the first complete story. You can buy this on my website if you're interested. You also have individual issues if you just want to give those a shot. Here we have Haxon, which is a related book to Side Questers. So these are short stories similar to how Fritz Lieber composed his Fafhrd books. These are about wizards and witches and magic users generally. And they're kind of dark tales that are just about the kind of mischief that magicians can get up to. So these are both on my website. And if you like unconventional superheroes, here's 3-Panel Origin, which is my weekly webcomic. New comics every Thursday on my Instagram. This is the first 3 years collected with remastered art. It looks better than it does online, and the tone is irreverent and silly. It's kind of like The Tick, where I create a character and tell their origin in 3 panels. And this is a book of short stories that are related to some of the characters I've created there. And again, like all fun, good and fun, and they're both available on my website. So if you like what I do and you want to support me, buy my books.